Pemirsa, saat ini kami sudah berada bersama Duta Besar Federasi Rusia untuk Indonesia, Ibu Ludmila Vorobieva. Kita akan mencari tahu bagaimana dengan penanganan coronavirus atau COVID-19 di Rusia sendiri dan bagaimana hubungan bilateral antara Indonesia dengan Rusia selama ini terjalin dan apa yang bisa ditingkatkan dengan potensi-potensi yang ada. Kita langsung sapa. Madam Ambassador, thank you for your time for Metro TV.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you with us in our program.
Thank you.
Madam Ambassador, we heard that in Russia, some restrictions will be lifted very soon.
Yes.
The business will be reopened, people can start, going to the parks, and then life will slowly going back to normal. So what are the measurements taken in order to do that, to ease the restrictions?
Actually, the right to ease the restrictions were given to the heads of the regions. So, like in Indonesia, actually.
Yeah.
According to the situation in every region, the governor or the head of the region, in some regions we have presidents, we call them, like Republic of Tatarstan has a president, though it's a part of Russia. So these rights belong to the heads of these regions. And the hardest region hit by the coronavirus infection is Moscow. Like in many countries, the capital where there is an influx of travelers, people come from different regions. So Moscow has been hit in the worst way by the coronavirus. By the way, we have around 500,000 cases of coronavirus all over our country. More than 200,000 people have already recovered. And we have one of the lowest death rates in the world. Around 5,000 people have passed away, and we've tested more than 13 million people for the coronavirus. So the situation is under control, and according to our experts, the curve is already flattened, and the situation is improving in Moscow as well. So that's why. You see, in different regions already, some regions have practically already lifted all the restrictions where we don't have many cases. So in Moscow, the hardest region hit by the coronavirus, it is going gradually. So at first, some of the industries have been permitted to work, the construction sites, people have been allowed to go out for walks, because at one point of time the restrictions were very strict.
Yeah.
People had to restrict their movements only to buy food or to visit a doctor, and especially for people who are over 65 age old. But according to the mayor of Moscow, Mr. Sobyanin, now the situation has improved radically. So from the 9th of June, practically all the restrictions have been lifted, including for the people, the pensioners, the people who are older than 65 years. Still, there are some restrictions, for instance, mass gatherings, not yet allowed. So theaters, movie theaters, big sport events are not allowed. Also, people need to wear masks in all public places and gloves as well. So according to how the situation develops, then maybe at the end of the month, the mayor will, if the situation improves, and we all hope that it will do, further restrictions will be lifted. So in the whole, the situation is under control, and it is improving, which of course is a very good news.
Yeah, a good news. What about the foreign nationals? Is there slowly will be open to foreign nationals to enter Russia?
Yes, as for now, basically foreigners are not allowed to visit Russia, with the only exceptions of people who come to Russia for medical help or to take care of their elderly relatives.
Okay.
So that is, or to work, like diplomats, for instance, they can have receive visa and come to Moscow. So and also there are restrictions for Russians to go abroad. So Russians are not yet allowed to go for tourism, say, but to also to seek medical help or to see the relatives who need help or to work, they can apply for permits.
Okay, you mentioned that Russia has the lowest death rate in the world.
Yes, one of the lowest.
One of the lowest. What's the secret for that, madam?
I think it's a good healthcare system, which proved to be very efficient. And the very quick measures that have been taken by our government and by the regions and the local authorities to prevent the spread and the fatalities from the disease. Yes,
that's from the government side. What about from the citizen side? Were they, all are being obedient, doing what the government told them to, so the numbers become like the lowest, right?
Well, I cannot say that Russians are the most obedient of.
That's why I'm asking.
But basically, yes, people, of course, complied with these restrictions. There were violations, but there were fines applied for people who violated the rules. So this complex of measures allowed to prevent disastrous scenarios, so and to take the infection under control. Of course, the people are not happy with the situation. How can they be?
Yeah.
But basically, the rules are yes, people comply with the rules and requirements.
Because we have that as well in Indonesia. Some are not obedient, and then there's fine, there's some punishment. What about in Russia? If there's any infringement of the law concerning the COVID-19?
Yes, they were fined. People were fined for instance, going out when they were not allowed to, or at one point of time the electronic passes were introduced. So if you wanted to go somewhere, you had to apply online or by phone for an electronic pass, and you could get that, and then with this pass you could go where you needed to. So some people violated that, but they were quite considerable fines. They were not small, I would say. So finally people complied with that.
Okay. One of the hard hittest, the coronavirus has affected in so many levels and sectors, and Russia has been well known with its tourism industry. As we know, all around the world has thriving the tourism industry. What about in Russia? Is it like, there's any measurements taken to going back to normal, to inviting tourists to come?
Well, of course, tourist industry was heavily hit, like all over the world. Well, now the priority for the Russian government is to restore the internal domestic tourism, because we have so many destinations for our people to go, especially in summertime when people love to travel, when the weather is fine. So, and we have lovely places in Russia where people could go. So a restriction for domestic tourism will be lifted quite soon. So probably in July people will have the opportunity to travel to the sea, like Black Sea, which is one of the famous resorts in resort places, regions in Russia. It is beautiful. Sochi, life is coming back to normal. Maybe new normal, but still normal.
The new normal. Fingers crossed, so everything will go back to normal. We're going to talk about the bilateral relationship with Indonesia after the commercial break. Dan pemirsa, kami akan kembali sesaat lagi terkait dengan bagaimana sih hubungan antara Indonesia dengan Rusia yang sudah terjalin selama dan potensi apa yang bisa dimanfaatkan. Tetaplah di Metro TV. Bersama dengan Duta Besar Federasi Rusia untuk Indonesia, Madam Ambassador, if we talk about the relationship between Indonesia and Russia, how do you describe that?
Well, first of all, I would like to mention that this year we're celebrating the 70th anniversary of our diplomatic relations, and actually I would describe our relations in a very positive way. You know, if you look at the history, the 70 years, of course we had our ups and downs, with the up being probably during the presidency of Sukarno, when we were very close. If you look in Jakarta, you could see several testimonies of that, like Gelora Bung Karno, which is a copy of one of the stadiums in Moscow, an exact copy. Because when President Sukarno visited my country, he gave a public speech. I believe it was in 1956, and he gave a public speech in this stadium, and he liked it so much so that he asked our then leader Nikita Khrushchev to help to build a similar one in Jakarta, and it was done. So now you can see this exact copy of the stadium in Moscow. Also, there is a monument in Jakarta made by a Russian sculptor. I don't remember quite the Indonesian name of it. It's near the Hotel Aryaduta.
Hotel Aryaduta.
Yeah, Aryaduta, and it's a soldier and a woman giving him some food. Yeah, so this is also
inspired by.
Yes, it was made by a Russian Soviet, sculptor. So these are the symbols of the close relations that we enjoyed at that time. The sort of revival of our relationship started during the presidency of Ibu Megawati Soekarno-Putri, when she went to Moscow in 2003, met with President Putin, and since then our relationship has been growing stronger. And in many ways. Of course, in terms of trade and investment, we can do more. Last year, we've seen our trade turnover on the level of around $2 billion. If you consider our combined population of 400 million, of course, it's not enough. And unfortunately, the coronavirus also stopped some things going on, but hopefully after this ends, we will resume and we will accomplish what we haven't been able to accomplish. There is a constant political dialogue between our two leaders. President Joko Widodo visited Russia in 2016, and he had a very good meeting with our president. We hope that we will have soon another summit between our two leaders. Actually, our two leaders last month, they talked on the phone and discussed measures to fight against the coronavirus. We hope that we could sign a number of documents during the coming summit, but when and how it will take place, we cannot say.
Yeah, and we're hoping that the next meeting will not only virtually, but everything's over and they can meet in person. And about the trade deals, so there's actually a deal about the buy of the Sukhoi Superjet from Indonesia to Russia, but then it's about $1.1 billion. In exchange, with Russia will buy our rubber and then furniture and then a lot of commodities out there. But then the United States officials said that they make it clear that they will give a sanctions to Indonesia for any trade deals with Russia. How do you respond to that, Madam?
Well, that is definitely an unfair competition by the it's not only about Indonesia, of course. It's done by the United States all over the world. But I can tell you that many countries purchase our defense equipment, which is very good. And
Very optimistic.
of course, yeah.
That's why we plan to buy it from
and
Russia.
of course, I would like to just to commend that Indonesia is an independent country. And I'm really sure that no third party has any right to point out to Indonesia what and whom from Indonesia will buy the defense equipment or any other commodity. So I'm optimistic. The deal is still on, and I really hope that it will go through. Because, you know, I always say the reason the Sukhoi 35 jets are one of the best in their category in the world. Indonesia is our friend, and we want our friends to have the best.
Why do you think they're doing that, madam?
You mean the United States? Well, because as I said, it's in fair competition. They want other countries to buy their own equipment, which may be not better, or maybe more expensive. So, blackmail.
Okay, you could say that, yeah. But there's still optimism on the deal, right?
Well, I hope so. I hope so.
It's a good trade deals.
Yes.
Because the Russia will buy some commodities from Indonesia as well.
And we are buying, including the palm oil.
The controversial.
We are buying palm oil from Indonesia, and we have no intention to stop that.
Okay. And let's talk about the tourism industry. If you go to Bali,
yes.
I believe you go there several times for the warm beach, there are a lot of Russian tourists there. The number is actually one of the highest from the Europe. And I myself, when I went to Bali, I met a lot of Russian friends over there, and you know, very friendly, just like Indonesians. And after the coronavirus hit, is there any, you know, were there some tourists still stuck here in Bali and they can't go back, and you know?
Yes. Unfortunately, there were about at the time when Russia closed its borders and no flights from outside were allowed, which happened in March. Around 5,000 Russian, more than 5,000, closer to 6,000 Russian tourists were in Bali, and they expressed their wish to go back to Russia, because there are Russian people who don't want to go back to Russia. They stay there for long periods of time. They practically live there. But of course, there were tourists who expressed wish to go to Russia. So Russian government organized evacuation flights that are still going on. We expect the next flights to come on the 14th of June, and to take around 400 people back to Moscow. We hope that, so now we have around 2,500 people there.
In Bali only, or in Indonesia?
Well, most are in Bali, because in Jakarta we don't have many Russians, and those Russians who are in Jakarta, they either work here or they're members of family of Indonesian nationals. So it's not a problem. The problem, of course, is how to get our tourists back to Russia. So there has been already a number of flights, and hopefully by the end of June we will manage to bring back to Russia all those who wish to do so.
What about their needs, madam? Because, you know, there's always needs every day, like their daily needs, and for those, especially tourists, they have a limited, you know, savings, and you know, for doing the needs and everything. Is there any support from the government?
Of course,
for that?
yes. Our government organized our government provides financial assistance to those Russian nationals who need it, who can actually prove that they don't have any means to sustain their daily needs, and the embassy is very much involved in this process. Also, as the embassy, we also have means to help our nationals, and we are doing so. Some of them are living in hotel or a hostel, and we pay for the hostel and for their meals. And as soon as we can get them on a evacuation flight from Russia, we do so. So the government has allocated budget to help our tourists all over the world. And there is a fixed amount of money that they can receive per person.
Okay, what about for those who have overstaying problems and have another troubles when they're here?
We're very grateful to the government of Indonesia, who actually made the decision to waive all the fines for people who were stuck here and who overstayed. So when our citizens go back to Russia, they don't have to pay any additional fine. And we really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much. Just as you said, I heard in the article that you said the relationship between Indonesia and Russia is jauh di mata, dekat di hati.
Yes.
We're hoping it will continue. We're hoping you have a good time here while you're still in Indonesia.
Thank you. Yes, I can tell you I fell in love with Indonesia.